And finally, let's take a look at how to use the accelerometer. Once again, back to our Solution Explorer. Let's open up the accelerometer page. And here, similar to the GPS, we have a button which starts tracking the accelerometer data because, again, it's event-driven, and you don't want to be tracking it all the time unless you're actually using it, partly to save battery life. And then we have 3 text blocks where we're going to show what the current values of the 3 axes of the accelerometer are as being reported by the accelerometer. So let's go take a look at the code behind this. In our accelerometer page, in order to be able to access the accelerometer, we need to get access to the Microsoft.devices.sensors API, where there's an accelerometer object. And then we need a timer because we use the timer in order to update the UI, as opposed to using a begin invoke that we used in the GPS thing. It's just a different way of getting data updated on the UI thread. So instead of taking the actual update event and firing off our UI thread, we simply update the UI thread based on a timer. The result of an accelerometer readback is an object of type vector3. So you've got X, Y, and Z axes. And then each time we get an accelerometer result, we get to find out whether or not the accelerometer data is valid. So we start out by saying, do we have an accelerometer on this device? Now, all existing Windows phones have accelerometers, but it's possible that you might eventually have one that doesn't. And assuming that we do have one, then we initialize our timer, set it to 30 milliseconds, and set up an event handler for it, but we don't actually start the timer. The accelerometer starts when the user taps the button. First time through, we go to see if we've actually allocated our accelerometer object. If not, we allocate it. We set up time between updates of 20 milliseconds, and again, we set up an event handler for the current value changed event. And then we start the accelerometer and we start our timer. It's highly unlikely that there'd be any problem with that, but just in case, we catch the exception to make sure that the accelerometer actually did start. Here's our callback method. All we do is set the data OK flag and set the vector3, whatever the current reading for the accelerometer is. And then we access that data in our timer callback, going and looking at if the data is OK, then we look at the X, Y, and Z properties on that vector3 object and set the text properties of our text blocks to update the current X, Y, and Z value. And that's a brief overview of the different kinds of sensors that you can access on every Windows phone. Some newer Windows phones also have a compass, and in the future, there may very well be other kinds of sensors that may show up, so stay tuned to the Microsoft website that gives you information on how to access the detailed sensors, especially the how-to site that always has samples for each kind of capability that are available in Windows Phone devices.